Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right then, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this finds you well and safe. My nose is chilled, my fingers are stiff. I was just squeegeeing all of my solar panels outside because they have a combination of ice and snow all over them. Not anymore, but woo, it's chilly. At least it wasn't super windy. That always makes it much worse, right? So we're talking about the Lankavatara. I was thinking that we might talk about, very early on in the Lankavatara, there's a discussion of the 108, what to call them, 108, some would say defilements, some would say Maya, the description of impediments. All sorts of different words are used. Basically, there is a very long history going back to the Vedas, using the number 108. And as you know, and I apologize that I'm not looking directly at you, but as you know, as I'm looking for this area, we have beads, Buddhist beads, which reminds me, it's been one of those mornings. And we have 108 beads, and we have, in addition, 4 bodhisattva beads, right? And we spend a considerable amount of time, we Buddhists, Nichiren Buddhists, Lotus Sutra Buddhism Buddhists, talking about the Tahoe Buddha, the Shakyamuni Buddha. It's not over yet. The Bodhisattva beads, the Namo Myoho Renge Kyo bead, the 10 world beads, the Ichinen Sanzen beads. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about the 108. Usually the only thing you hear about the 108 is, well, that's earthly desires. And I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to surpass the 108 limit when it comes to earthly desires. So what does Shakyamuni say about it? And although I fell on this page several times yesterday, easily, for some odd reason, I am not falling upon it today. Cling to individual forms, sitas, manas, vijnana. Oh man, I'm finding everything else, all manner of other things. And this is going to make me second think my thoughts on the number 108. This is silliness now. I should have had this marked before I started. Hermaphrodites, my goodness, they talk about everything in this Buddhism here. Oh my goodness, how could it be this difficult? I'm going to give up on this in a minute, and we'll just talk in general again about the Mahayana Lankavatara Sutra. You know what? I'm going to look in the index. Is there an index? Is there an index? Appendix? There's no index in this book. Of course there's no index. My apologies. I am just a doddering old man. Unbelievable. It was the first thing I ran into. In fact, I'd forgotten all about it, so when I ran into it, I thought, well, this might be interesting to talk about. As I said earlier, there's not much discussion about it. There's all kinds of weirdness on the internet about it. In fact, on threefoldlotus.com, I have a whole paper on the 108 and a bunch of research that I downloaded and made available for you guys to peruse and see what meaning you could, or insights you could grasp from it. And those of you who are industrious enough to go to threefoldlotus.com and read that material, I would love to hear your insights or your questions in regard to the 108. It constantly appears in many different places, not just Buddhism. As I was saying, goes back to the Vedic text. So there's Brahman, quote unquote, wisdom about it. There's all sorts of cultural, Christianity, Islam, every philosophy, religion, or method seems to have some collection of 108. And I found it fascinating for a time, and I thought, since I ran into it here in the Lankavatara, might be interesting to talk about it. Oh my goodness. No index, not popping out at me. So, the Lankavatara. At first, it's kind of an intellectual stepping stone between the skandhas, the Shravakas, the students of Hinayana, and how they classify in the early teachings their understanding as meaning this whole self-enlightenment thing, this very insular practice. And somehow they find a way to discuss that insular practice as the way of liberating the world. But as Shakyamuni quite adeptly points out in many, many examples in the Lankavatara, the only thing that's liberated from the world is your presence. It's not liberating the world and others at all. And that is an incomplete practice. Going beyond the samadhi and understanding attained by the Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas abide in the attainment of the Bodhisattvas in the stages of Akala, Sadhumati, and Dharmamega. Grasp well the egolessness of all things in its true significance. Be anointed by the Buddhas in samadhi at the great palace of lotus jewels, surrounded by the Bodhisattvas who are sitting on lotuses of various sorts, each supported by the gracious power of the Buddhas. Thou shalt find thyself sitting on a lotus, and each one of the Bodhisattvas looking at thee face to face. This is a realm beyond the imagination. Though shouldest, does this sound like old English Christian rhetoric? It's because it is. Applied to Buddhist teaching, translation. Talk about cultural bias. And thou shouldest attain the stage of Tathagatahood, in which one is able to manifest oneself in various forms, and which is something never seen before by the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, philosophers, Brahma, Indra, Upendra, and others. At that moment, the Lord of Lanka, being permitted by the Tathagata, rose from his seat on the peak of the jeweled mountain, which shone like the jeweled lotus, immaculate and shining in splendor. He was surrounded by a large company of celestial maidens and all kinds of garlands, flowers, perfumes, incense, unguents, umbrellas, banners, flags, necklaces, half-necklaces, diadems, tiaras, and other ornaments whose splendor and excellence were never heard of or seen before, were created. Music was played, surpassing anything that could have been by the gods, nagas, yakshas, rakshas, gandharvas, kinnaras, mahoragas, and men. Musical instruments were created equal to anything that could be had in the world of desires, going on and on and on and on and on and on. Get to the point. The duality of dharma and adharma thus comes into existence. Yeah, again, this is a very elaborate description of what I spoke of in the last video, and it bears repeating, that our mind of cognition, our human mind of cognition, is so completely enraptured in identification, discrimination, identifying. Listen to the rhetoric here. This kind of jewel, the flowers, the this, the that, all different kinds, endless kinds. All of that is discriminations and identification. All of this to make the point that all that we cognate, all that we perceive, all whence are families and no families, what is meant by mind only, the setting up of marks, and whence the doctrine of egolessness. Why is there no being? What kind of teaching is in accordance with popular thinking? How can one cease cherishing eternalism and nihilism? How is it that you do not offer from the philosophers, as regards appearance, tell me, whence is the rise of the Nyaya school, its future? What is meant by emptiness? What do you understand by momentary destruction? Whence is the womb, and whence is the stability of the world? Why is the world like a vision and a dream? How does it resemble the city of Gandharvas? Why is it to be regarded as like a mirage or like the moon reflected in the water? Pray tell me. All of this is about Shakyamuni trying to distinguish people's apprehension of everything in the world as an imprint of their personal human mind. Picture a ball bouncing down a road. It's an inclined road, so it just keeps bouncing. And you watch it. What Shakyamuni is trying to define here is your act of watching is not truly an act of watching. When we say watching, what we mean, humans mean, is that we see and recognize and categorize and identify a ball, a bouncing object, for which we give the name ball. You could go deeper. You could say, I see some energy being displaced and behaving in a manner that is consistent with the idea bouncing ball. Take that further apart, if you will. I'm going to stop there. I think you get what I'm saying. What we actually are saying in our heads is, I am cognating through my vision consciousness, and even maybe my ear consciousness, maybe we hear it bounce, but let's just go with the eyes. And I am seeing something real. And that real thing is in the process of behavior that I recognize as bouncing. And we continue to watch the bouncing ball until it disappears. What Shakyamuni is saying is, no, that's wrong. There is indeed a ball bouncing down the road. I give you that. Where I want you to focus your mind is that the moment you realize there was a thing that you go through the whole mess of how you called it, labeled it a ball, and that it's bouncing. From the moment you perceived it, the instant you perceived it, it ceased in your mind. You were no longer seeing whatever it is you call ball. The ball, indeed, is constantly changing and bouncing and going down the road. It has an existence. It is real. I'm not denying that it is real. But what I am saying is that your mind constructed everything from that point on. Because your mind is taking momentary, finite little discrete snapshots of the thing it identified as a ball. From that point on, whether the ball in a different light enables you to discover that the color you thought it was is different than it actually is, given the distance you have from the ball and all the physics associated with that. The problem to be pondered is that you made an image of that ball in your mind. And from that point on, it was that ball in your mind that you were watching. It was no longer the real ball, but the ball your mind had created, taken a snapshot of, and instantiating and following and reinvestigating, reinventing. That's the illusion. That's not real. That is empty. And yet, that image that the mind holds on to and projects as real to the self, the I, that is where all the problems come in. Because that ball, the real ball, is gone. But in your mind, you can replay it endlessly. And when you stop replaying it, I missed that ball. And your concept of ball, your remembrance of ball, your future application of ball, everything you think from that moment on about ball will have that content in it in some form. And that content is self-created. It is a construction of mind. That's what mind only means. Because that's how we samsarically experience life. We don't experience it, those of you who are saying, I'm a realist. You think you're a realist, but all of the information that you're perceiving, cataloging, identifying is of your own making. And that is the central point. Now, you can call all of those unfathomably great number of images and thoughts and so on and so forth from the sensations and the consciousnesses collecting constantly in our samsaric mind. You can call them monkeys. You can call them delusions. You can call them a dream state, a mirage. You can call them all sorts of things to try to define the reality that we in our samsaric minds live within. It is completely created of the mind. That does not mean, insert nihilism, that everything else that may have spawned those initial thoughts, attachments, are therefore unreal and do not exist. Doesn't mean that at all. What it does mean is the concept the mind retains of those things instantly, that's not real. That's just a tool with which to perceive. And to remember what we read in the Diamond Sutra? This apparatus exists solely for knowledge and remembrance. Knowledge, ball, remembrance. Remember how it bounced down the road? It seemed to change color at some point. Balls can change color. And on and on and on and on. It's not just about physical things like balls. It's about behavior. It's about friendly, foe. It's about progress. It's about feelings. It's about touching. It's about smells. It's about hearing. Every sense that we experience is a construction of mind. It may have some tendril to actual what is going on. But the proposal Shakyamuni is trying to lay out is that if you can break down the illusions, the constructions, the mind-made reality, and identify it as such, then your feelings, your investments in that reality also dissolve, leaving before you the real. And that, being unattached and unconstructed by you, can be freely expressed and experienced without the baggage, the stress, the naivete, the pain, the sadness, the sorrow, right? This is the perfection of wisdom. Now, to you and I, Myoho Renge Kyo, practitioners of the ultimate way of doing that, without having to spend days, hours, lifetimes trying to catch the mind doing that and stop it from doing that. Not stopping the mind, we need the mind to experience, but stopping its identification with thingness, that mirage, so that we could, oh, look, that's what's really here. And experience that, freed of the attachments and sensations of the mirage. All we have to do is enshrine a mandala in a nice focal point, undisturbed by anything else, a quiet place, sit at attention, and say, okay, let me just do this. Not think about it. Just do it. Let all of your thoughts, energies, focus, listening, sounds, sensations be focused on this one clear mind. Myoho Renge Kyo. And boom, there it happens. And when the mandala visually shifts on you and you're in a rhythm and man, you're just going and time disappears. Space-time becomes this moment-to-moment experience. And you kind of don't want to stop because I'm in it. I just got to stay in it. Stop thinking. Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All of my senses are in Myoho Renge Kyo. And then you stop and you turn away. And slowly but surely, like little sparks of light, you start to reattach, re-engage, reinvest. But you're witnessing it. You're seeing the transcendence happen. Hold on to that. Stay in Myoho Renge Kyo. Experience your lover, your friend, your sibling, strangers, the mailman, as these wonderfully self-driven things that are constructed of their own minds. I mean the mailman, not the tree outside. That's what's fascinating about looking at trees, or mountains, or rocks, or lawns, or flowers, or hummingbirds. Everything. Simply coursing as itself. In the case of sentient beings, misguided by their mirage. Can I affect your mirage? Will you support me in discarding mine? Because that place, amazing, undescribable. Excuse me. This is our practice, friends. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Shakyamuni spent his lifetime trying to get people to awaken to this understanding of the life process and how sentient beings confound themselves, stay in the lower worlds. Even the middling and higher worlds have steep learning curves, steep enough that some never escape Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, Arhat. Because it is in my relationship with the mailman, or the mailwoman, or the mail service person that I discover aspects of myself that I had no idea existed, that I never constructed for myself. They were there, I just never looked at them because they're not physical things. They're energies and tendencies and conditions built within my huge amalgam of being that without mirroring, without bouncing off of another sentient being, I wouldn't have known about myself. Now I have something new to disassemble and dissolve. What is that energy of formation? Why is that forming in my consciousness? Because my consciousness is just creating video after video for my entertainment instead of seeing what is real. I'm creating a reality born of tendencies and conditions in my own vast pool of energy. Do I need to allow that to develop because it supports my enlightenment? Or is it creating myriad obstacles that I need to pop those bubbles as soon as I can? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I think I'm going to call that enough to think about for today. And I'm going to endeavor to find that passage of 108 whatevers, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. I will be more prepared. But I hope that there was some kind of kernel of insight that you could wrap your mind around here in today's dialogue. I certainly hope so, because it's a very, very fundamental kind of understanding of what Shakyamuni has been trying to teach in his lifetime. And ultimately, in the Lotus Sutra, gives us a tool to do it instantaneously. But like so many things in samsara, the minute we learn how to do something and aha it, we tend to forget the significance of what it is we're doing. We get excited, we enjoy it for the moment, and we keep doing it, and at some point, samsara creeps in and going, what is it exactly that you're doing? Why does this feel good, feel right, but it's gone as soon as I walk back into the house and get in an argument with my so-and-so? How is it that I could feel so light as air a moment ago, and the moment I walked to the door and stubbed my toe, where'd it go? What's going on? Perhaps, in talking about it this way, you can get a better idea for what the nature of the obstacle actually is. That mind of discriminations, attachments, being. It's very stubborn. And with that, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care of your health so that you can continue to have these insights and thoughts and experience your Buddha nature. It's your whole reason to be here, is to perceive the wonder. It's here all the time. How is it that you're missing it? Questions for self, right? Thank you so much for listening, downloading the podcasts. It's hard to download these videos. YouTube does not really make that a facility. But at least you can download the podcasts. They're free. Use them. Re-listen to them. Use the threefoldlotus.com resource. There's a lot of PDFs and written material all over that site. It's all HTML and text and PDFs. There's no crazy programming or buying there. There's links to buy stuff if you want to do that. That's always extremely helpful. My patrons, as always, you guys are number one. We're all number one. But you patrons, you help make this possible. Either on Patreon or, all the various methods. Anyway, I hope you're starting off this year in a positive fashion. If not, it's an opportunity to make it so. Let me know. We'll work on it together. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. That's become my sign-off of sorts, hasn't it? See you later.